Went on a date with a girl recently, kind of a hot, emo goth chick. We sat down at the table and immediately, before I'd even sipped my coffee, she started trauma dumping. Immediately. Tell me how her dad never gave her any attention, how her uncle gave her too much attention. And she's always struggled with mental health. Could never gain any weight. And I was sitting across the table looking at her, and all I could think was, yes.
Good morning. It's Friday, Engine Company 82 Friday, July the 12th, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have the headlines, my take, and report from Engine Company 82. All that and more when I get back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen.
Johnny, get your gun, get your gun, get your gun. Take it on the run, on the run, on the run. Hear them calling you and me, every son of liberty. Hurry right away, no delay, go today. Make your daddy glad to have had such a lad. Tell your sweetheart not to mind, to be proud of boys in line over there, over there. Send the word over there, that the Yanks are coming, the Yanks are coming, the drums rum-tumming everywhere. So prepare, say a prayer, send the word to beware. We'll be over, we're coming over, and we won't come back till it's over there. Johnny, get your gun, get your gun, get your gun. Johnny, show the Hun who's the son of a gun. Hoist the flag and never fly. Yankee Doodle, do or die. Pack your little kids, show your grit, do your bit. Yankee to the reds from the towns and the tanks. Make your mother proud of you. And the old red, white, and blue over there, over there. Send the word over there, that the Yanks are coming, the Yanks are coming, the drums rum-tumming everywhere. So prepare, say a prayer, send the word to beware. We'll be over, we're coming over, and we won't come back till it's over there, and we won't come back till it's over there.
Thank you. And now, Stuart Varney with the headlines.
Monday, we'll be live from the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee. We'll see you then. Varney and Company picks it up. Stu, take it away.
All right. Good morning, Maria, and good morning, everyone. It is the day after the big press conference. The presidency was on the line. No huge gaffes or freeze-ups that would knock him out of the race immediately, but he has not convinced everyone that he is capable of being president for 4 more years. More Democrats defected this morning, bringing it to a total of 17 so far, asking the president to step aside. At this point, Biden appears to be at war with his own party. He's isolated and losing donors and faces the prospect of his every word being scrutinized for signs of infirmity. The president spoke for about an hour. He took 10 questions, none from Fox. His voice was weak. He meandered. He confused Zelensky with Putin and Trump with Kamala Harris. You will see it all throughout the show. To the markets, producer prices up 2.6% over the last 12 months. That's a hotter number than was expected. We don't have a big rebound from yesterday's selling in stocks. Everyone wants to know how long the rotation out of big tech will last. The Dow, though, up maybe 78, NASDAQ up maybe 6 points. Not much of a comeback for big tech after heavy selling Thursday. Look at that. All of them down big yesterday. Most of them not recovering at all. Microsoft back up just by 55 cents. That's it. Interest rates up a little. The 10-year just below 4.25%, actually moving down just a fraction there, 4.20. And the 2-year right now coming in just below 4.5%. Bitcoin, last checked, $57,000. That's where it is now. Oil, well above $80 a barrel. We're looking now at $83.36. It keeps creeping up. Gas, though, no change there. $3.53. Diesel, no change, $3.87. On the show today, the role of Obama in the movement to get get Biden to step aside. His fingerprints are all over the divorce between the former and current presidents. We have the backstory on George Clooney's break with Biden. Seems the flow of Hollywood money has dried up. And you'll like this one. We have a prediction of a melt up for stocks. Friday, July 12th, 2024.
And that was Stuart Varney with the headlines. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, Stuart Varney's My Take.
And now this. Tonight, the stakes could not be higher. The president holds what's being called a big boy press conference. It's supposed to be a real press conference with lots of questions, and it goes on for an hour. We'll see. The pressure is intense. The president's performance may frankly end his presidency. If there's a repeat of anything like the disastrous debate 2 weeks ago, his supporters will desert in droves. They're already beginning to walk away. Every morning, we see new people added to the defectors list. It's now 10 House Democrats. 1 Senate Democrat, Michael Bennet of Colorado, he thinks Biden will lose in a landslide. Another, Senator Pete Welch of Vermont, wants Biden to, flat out, withdraw. George Clooney went to the New York Times to tell Biden, we need a new nominee. Michigan Governor Whitmer says it wouldn't hurt for Biden to take a cognitive test. Senate Leader Schumer tells donors privately that he wouldn't mind a new candidate. Nancy Pelosi says Biden's future is up to him, but please make a decision soon. We're running out of time. The list goes on and on and on. Striking, though, isn't it, that so many Democrats knew about the president's problems but stayed silent. They were complicit in the cover-up, and the only reason they're coming out now is that they think they will lose the election. They are not thinking of the good of the country. They are thinking of their own political future. There is one group that's firmly behind Biden, and that's the left. AOC, Bernie Sanders, Ilhan Omar, all want Biden to stay. And why not? Biden has pursued leftist policies, and Vice President Kamala Harris is as progressive as they come. The walls around Biden may be cracking, but he can always rely on the socialists. Tonight, it's all on the line. Biden has to convince his party and his country that he is capable of leading America for another 4 years. That is an uphill struggle. There must be many Democrats who wish he'd called it quits after one term. He could have walked away a hero, but he didn't. Democrats ignored his decline, covered it up, and now their party is facing defeat at the hands of the man they hate, Donald J. Trump. Second hour of Varney just getting started.
And that was Stuart Varney's My Take. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now I'm changing to a different book on Friday. It's the same basic idea as Gutter Medicine, but it's called Report from Engine Company 82 by Dennis Smith. And I think that this is going to be more of what it is that I'm looking for. The other one was okay, except it was rather melancholy, rather dark. And this looks to be more adventurous and more upbeat. So this is Chapter 1 of Report from Engine Company 82.
New York City, September 9th, 1998. The Late Late Show is on the television, and most of us are sitting in the kitchen when the bells start to ring. I take a last sip of tea as I count 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The kitchen chair's empty as the last number comes in. Box 2515, Intervale Avenue and Kelly Street. We can smell the smoke as the pumper turns down Intervale, and hands automatically start pulling boot tops to thighs, clipping coat rings closed, and putting on gloves. The pumper stops in front of a building just before we reach Kelly Street. We're about to stretch the hose when there is an anguished scream from inside the building. A boy is running out of the doorway, his shirt and hair aflame. Ladder 31 and Chief Salwin are right behind us, and one of the laddermen goes rapidly to the boy's assistance. Willie Nips takes the first folds of the hose and heads into the building. Carol and I follow, dragging the rest of the hose with us. Royce and Boyle are still on the sidewalk donning masks. Lieutenant Welch is waiting for us on the second floor, crouched low by a smoking door. There are 4 apartments on the floor, and 3 of the doors are open, their occupants fleeing. Chief Salwin arrives, stops for a moment at the top of the stairs, and then rushes into the apartment adjoining the rooms on fire. He starts kicking through the wall with all his strength. The smoke rushes through the hole, darkening the apartment and the hall. Nips and I are coughing and have to lie on our bellies as we wait for the water to surge through the hose. Carol has gone down for another mask. He can tell it's going to be a tough, snotty job. Billy O and Artie Merritt start to work on the locked door. It's hard for me to breathe with my nose to the marble floor of the hall, and I think of the beating Artie and Billy O must be taking as they stand where the smoke is densest, swinging on the axe, hitting the door with the point of the Halligan tool. The door is tight and does not give easily. Captain Frimes arrives with Charlie McCarty behind him. "Give me a man with a Halligan," Chief Salwin yells, and Captain Frimes and McCarty hustle into the adjoining apartment. "I'm sure I heard someone in there," Chief Salwin says. Charlie widens the hole in the wall. The Chief and Captain Frimes are on their knees as Charlie works. After furious hacking, the hole is through to the next apartment. Charlie tries to squeeze through the bay, the 16-inch space between the 2x4s. He can't make it, not with his mask on. He turns to take the mask off, but before he can get it off, Captain Frimes enters through the hole. The front door has still not been opened, and Frimes knows that only luck or the help of God will keep the whole place from lighting up. He crawls on the floor toward the front door, swinging his arms before him as if swimming the breaststroke. His hand is stopped by the bulk of a body lying on the floor. It's a big frame, and Captain Frimes struggles to drag it toward the hole in the wall. The fire is raging in 3 rooms, at the end of the hall, and spreading fast toward the front of the building. McCarty is just crawling through the hole as the captain passes by with a body. "Here, Cap, here," McCarty yells. The smoke is so thick that Captain Frimes missed the hole. McCarty grabs the body under the arms and pulls. Captain Frimes can hear Billy O and Artie working on the door, and he makes a desperate effort back down the hall. He reaches the front door and feels the long steel bar of a fox lock. Like a flying buttress, the bar reaches up from the floor and braces the door closed. Captain Frimes knows locks as well as he knows his own kids' names, and he kneels and turns the bolt of the lock. He jumps back, and the door swings open. Billy O and Artie grab the captain, who is overcome by smoke and can barely move now, and pull him out of the apartment. Charlie McCarty walks past us with the body in his arms. It is a boy, about 16 or 17 years old. He is a strapping black youth, but McCarty is a powerful man and carries him easily to the street. The boy is still breathing, but barely. McCarty knows he has got to get some oxygen into him if he is to live, and begins mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. The hose comes to life with water as Billy O and Artie pull the captain down the stairs. Lieutenant Welch gives the okay to Nips, and we start crawling down the hall. We reach the first burning room, and Nips opens the nozzle. The room is filled with the crackling of fire, and as the water stream hits the ceiling, the sound is made louder by falling plaster, steaming and hissing on the wet floor. The fire darkens quickly, and the smoke banks to the floor. There is no escape from it, and Nips knows that he has to push into the last room for a rest. "Give me some more line," he yells, and his order is relayed back through the hall by Lieutenant Welch's voice. "Lighten up on the 1.5 inches." The hose moves forward, and Nips with it. Boyle moves up, breathing easily in his mask. He is going to relieve Nips on the line, but he trips in the middle of the room. He feels around the floor to see what tripped him, and his hands sink into another body. "I got a victim here," he yells through the mouthpiece of the mask. Carroll joins him quickly, and they carry the body out. Royce moves up to the nozzle, and Nips says that he thinks he can make it, but Lieutenant Welch orders him to take a blow, and Royce takes the nozzle. Nips stands to make a quick exit to clean air, but the smoke has gotten to him. He vomits, and the stream of food and acid falls over the back of my coat and boots. He doesn't stop to apologize. Vinnie Royce moves slowly and deliberately through the second and third rooms. Lieutenant Welch is next to him all the while, saying, "You got it, Vinnie, you got it," and coughing continuously. I am right behind, humping the hose and leaning into it to relieve the 50-pound per square inch back pressure that is straining Vinnie's arms. As the third room darkens down completely, I run to the fire escape window and climb out of it. I lie on my back on the narrow steel strips of the fire escape, taking the air, sucking the oxygen from it, not taking the time to look at anything. Boyle and Carroll lay the second body on the sidewalk, next to the boy McCarty carried out and is now using the mechanical resuscitator on. Carroll looks at the body before him. He is a teenager also, and his clothes are like charred bits of paper sticking to his skin. He is badly burned, and the flesh on parts of his face is opened so that it looks like there are pink patches woven into his black skin. Boyle turns away and vomits as Benny plugs the facepiece connection into the regulator of the resuscitator. He puts his finger into the facepiece, testing it, making sure there is the quick clicking sound of air being pushed and relieved. In and out, in and out. The mechanical apparatus forces pure oxygen into the lungs until they expand and build up enough pressure to push the air out again. Benny tilts the boy's head back and fits the facepiece onto the burned face. He holds the mouthpiece tightly with both hands to ensure a good seal because the thing doesn't work if the oxygen escapes. Boyle places one hand over the other on the boy's chest, and he pumps, like a heart, 60 times a minute. "He's as dead as a board," Boyle says. "Yeah," Benny says, "but we have to try." Engine 73 stretched a line to the floor above the fire. One room was lost, but they stopped the fire there. Now they have taken up their hose and are on their way back to their Prospect Avenue firehouse. Ladder 31 and ladder 48 are still here, pulling the ceilings and walls. Vinny has taken his mask off and is waiting for the men of the truck companies to finish their work. One quick bath, a final washdown, and we'll take up. Chief Solwyn is supervising the operation, and Alan Sybeck asks him, between pulls on his hook, "What happened to the guy who was on fire, Chief?" "The police put him in the car and rushed him to the hospital, but I understand he didn't make it. The doctor pronounced him DOA." "How the hell did he get out?" Alan asks. "The only thing I can figure is that he got out the fire escape window and went downstairs and through the hall, burning all the while." Bill Finch, Chief Solwyn's aide, enters the room. "What should I do with the gas cans, Chief?" he asks. "Just leave them here. The fire marshals will be here shortly." While Billy O was searching the rooms, he found 2 gas cans, and already found a third in the hall. The one in the hall was still half full. "That's something, isn't it?" Benny says, making a facial gesture of disgust and dejection. "These kids were probably torching the place, and it lit up on them. I know it sounds lousy to say, but if it happened more often, people would learn, and we wouldn't have so many torch jobs." Lieutenant Welch joins us. and we began to talk about the fire, as we do after each job. "Did you notice that the whole place was charred?" he asks, as he leads us to the front of the apartment. We look at the walls in all of the rooms, and they are bubbled and crisp. "You can see," he says, "that there was a great amount of intense heat here. But when we got here, there were only 3 rooms going. The kids must have spread gasoline all over, and there was a flash fire. It probably burned through the whole place for a few moments, and then burned itself out, except, of course, in the front 3 rooms, where there was enough oxygen to keep the fire going. It's like lighting a candle in a mayonnaise jar, and then putting the top on. The candle will burn until the flame eats all the oxygen in the jar, and then it will go out." 2 fire marshals arrive and begin to question the chief, Captain Frimes, and Lieutenant Welch. They are dressed in wide lapelled jackets and colorful ties. If I were in a downtown bar, I would figure them for detectives because they wear their jackets open and have tough but handsome faces. Their job is essentially that of a police detective, but they are responsible only for crimes connected with fires. They're firefighters, just like us, but they would rather wear a gun at their side than have a nozzle in their hands. I was asked once if I would like to be a marshal, but I figured that I applied to be a firefighter because I wanted to fight fires. If I had wanted to investigate crimes, I would have applied to be a policeman. The marshals take down the information they think necessary and leave for the hospital. One of the teenagers is still living, and they want to see if he can answer some questions before he dies. They take the gas cans with them. The truckmen are finished with their overhauling work, and Vinny gives the rooms a last spray. We drain the hose, repack it, and head back to the firehouse. It is near 6 o'clock now, and the brightness of the day begins to invade the South Bronx. In the kitchen again. The men haven't bothered to wash up, and they sit before their steaming cups of coffee with smoke and mucus-stained faces. They are talking about the ironic justice of the fire, although they don't call it ironic justice, but tough shit. None of us want to see anyone killed, but there is a sad kind of it's either you or me irony here. We remember all the obvious torch jobs we have been called into, all the vacant buildings, the linoleum placed over holes in the floor so the firefighters would fall to the floor below, the people killed in the rooms above a fire because the tenant below had a fight with his wife and set the place up, and the burns, cuts, and broken limbs we have suffered because of them. Any one of us could have been killed in that fire, but it was the arsonists who were killed this time. Willie Nips comes into the kitchen, and I remember Vinnie Royce washing the vomit from my coat and boots. I had forgotten about it, but Vinnie noticed it and put the nozzle on me, washing me clean. Ordinarily, I would say something funny about this. Something like, "Hey, Nips, next time you go into a fire, bring a bucket with you, huh?" But I'm too tired. It was 4 days later that Benny Carroll asked me, "Did you hear about the fire we had the other night? The one where the 2 kids were killed?" "I was there, Benny, don't you remember?" "I don't mean it that way, dumbo. I mean about the investigation." No. Tell me about it." "Well, the marshals were here last night and told the story. It seems that the landlord wanted that apartment vacant, and he knew that the people wouldn't be there that night, so he hired some guy to torch the place. The guy then hires the 3 kids to light it up, and when they were in there spreading the gasoline, the guy threw a match in and locked the door on them. They're looking for the guy now for a double murder. It looks like the kid Captain Frimes got out is going to live." Benny was going to continue with the story, but the bells came in. Now I am on the back step of the pumper and thinking that it wasn't ironic justice at all. It's what always happens in the South Bronx. The real devil gets away without a burn, and the children of the South Bronx are the victims. My name is Dennis Smith, and I'm a New York City fireman, one of New York's bravest. New York's bravest. That's what the writers of newspaper editorials call us. There are almost 8 million people in this city, and 12,000 of us are firemen. We are different from the rest of the people who work in this town. Bankers, admin, truck drivers, secretaries, sellers and buyers, all have a high degree of assurance that they will return home from work in the evening the same way they left in the morning, on their feet. A little tired perhaps, but on their feet. Firemen are never sure. When a fireman's wife kisses him as he leaves for work, she makes a conscious wish that he will return to her. She hopes that she will not have to make those fast, desperate arrangements for a babysitter so that she can visit him in the hospital. And each time the doorbell rings, she hopes that there will not be a chief, a chaplain, or a union official there, all coming to say kind things about her husband. How good he was. How dedicated. How brave. I'm part of Engine Company 82. The firehouse I work out of is on Intervale Avenue and 169th Street in a ghetto called the South Bronx. Of the three biggest ghettos in New York City, the South Bronx is the least talked about. You've heard of Harlem. Adam Clayton Powell came from Harlem. And you may have heard of Bedford-Stuyvesant. Shirley Chisholm comes from Bedford-Stuyvesant. Nobody you've ever heard of comes from the South Bronx. Around the corner from the firehouse is the 41st Precinct House. It is the busiest police station in the city. There are more homicides per square mile in this precinct than anywhere in the United States. More drug traffic, more prostitution. There are 4 companies working out of the firehouse on Intervale Avenue. Engine 82, Engine 85 do the hose work in the district. Ladder Company 31 and Tactical Control Unit 712 do the rescue work, the ladder work, and the axe work. Until recently, my company and Engine 85 responded to many of the same alarms. Then, 2 years ago, we responded a record number of times. Engine 85 went out 8,386 times in a 12-month period. Ladder Company 31 went to 8,597 alarms. And my company, Engine 82, went to 9,111. The fire department saw that a change was needed and arranged that engines 82 and 85 would not respond to the same alarms. The plan worked. Last year, my company's responses dropped to 6,377, and Engine 85's to 5,012. But the plan worked only for the engine companies. Ladder Company 31's responses increased to 8,774. Another plan was then devised, and Tactical Control Unit 712 was created to respond only within the high incidence hours between 3 in the afternoon and 1 in the morning. The 4 companies on Intervale Avenue are now each averaging 700 runs a month. It is safe to say that ours is the busiest firehouse in the city, and probably the world. An average of 8 firemen die each year while doing their duty in New York City. Only 6 died last year, and I don't want to think how many will die this year or next. Almost 5,000 firemen were injured in the line of duty last year. The injuries cost the city 65,000 days in medical leaves. There is a sign in the kitchen of my firehouse. It is inconspicuously hung, and it reads with a proper amount of ambiguity: "This could be the night." We don't talk about the hazards of the trade in the firehouse. There is no sense in talking about what we hope never becomes a reality for us and for our families. It's all part of the job. And like committed Calvinists, we accept what's written in the cards for us. Just yesterday, a man was killed. He was assigned to Rescue Company 1. He was working on the roof of a burning warehouse. The roof had been weakened by the fire, and it gave in. The man fell through the roof and into an air shaft. He passed 8 floors before he hit the bottom. I was sitting in the kitchen of the firehouse when the bells came in. First 5 short rings, a pause, 5 more, a pause, another 5, another pause, and the final 5. Signal 5555 has a special meaning to us. Put the flag at half-mast and listen to the department radio for the message. There is a 5x5 cubicle at the front of the firehouse. Inside the small partition, there is a man writing the signal in the department company journal. He turns the volume of the department radio up as we gather around it. This is the man assigned house watch duty, and he knows what he has to do. After recording the signal, he moves to the outside of the firehouse and brings the colors to half-mast. He returns to the watch desk and prepares to write the message in the company journal. His face is pensive, and he is asking himself the same question we are all asking ourselves. I wonder if I know the guy. The radio begins to squawk the message, and the house watchman begins to write. The signal 5555 has been transmitted, and the message is as follows. It is with deep regret that the department announces the death of fireman first grade Edward Tuitt, which occurred while operating at box 583 at 11:25 hours this date. None of us there knew the man personally, but we all felt the loss. We went about our work for the rest of the day without talking about it. I had a friend we don't talk about either. His name was Mike Carr, and he was an upstanding kind of a guy. He was the union delegate of Engine 85. Only a few days before his death, I had mentioned to him that we should clean out an old locker and use it for our union business. It was a shabby old locker, but it could be used to store medical forms, work contracts, information bulletins, and other union material. Mike thought it was a good idea, and within the hour, he had the locker cleared and had begun painting it. Anything that had the smallest benefit for firemen would interest Mike, and he worked untiringly for the men in the firehouse. Then a 9-year-old boy reached up and pulled the alarm box handle. Kids do this a lot in the South Bronx. His friends giggled, and they all ran up the street to watch the fire engines come. The box came in on the bells, 2787, Southern Boulevard and 172nd Street. Mike pulled himself up on the side step of the apparatus. The heavy wheels turned up Intervale Avenue, the officer's foot pressing hard on the siren. At Freeman Street, the apparatus turned right, and Mike lost his grip. He spun from the side step like a top. Marty Hannon and Juan Moran jumped off the apparatus even before it came to a screeching stop. There was blood all over. They could see that Mike had stopped breathing. Marty cleared some of the blood away with a handkerchief and began mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. He told me all he remembers of those agonizing minutes was the battalion chief's voice blaring over the department radio. Transmit signal 1092 for box 2787. Malicious false alarm. In the city of New York last year, firemen responded to 72,060 false alarms, an average of 197 daily. Yet the courts and the police department do not look on the pulling of a false alarm as a serious offense. Few are arrested, fewer are found guilty, and fewer still are punished. Besides Mike Carr, I know of 2 other firemen who were killed en route to false alarms in New York City in the past 8 years. But it is not just firemen who are victimized by false alarms. Often, while firemen are answering a false alarm at one end of their district, a serious fire breaks out at the other end. Time is the most important factor in fighting fires. I can remember many fires where, had we been there a minute or 2 sooner, we probably would have saved someone's life. 307 people died in New York City fires last year. Statistics are not available, but you can be sure that some of those deaths could have been avoided if firemen had not been answering a false alarm minutes before. Mike Carr is dead, and his widow will have to make it on just half the salary she was used to. It's strange. But had Mike come through the accident with a disabling injury, he would have been pensioned off with 3/4 of his salary. His wife would have been happy to have him alive. But he died, and she gets half his salary to support his family. The same will go to the widow of the man who fell through the roof yesterday. We don't talk about Mike Carr in the firehouse. We think about him often, but we don't talk about him. Words of sentiment and emotion do not come easily. The day following Mike's death, the firehouse was busy with journalists and television news camera crews. Marty Hannon and Juan Moran were not working, and the television people decided to film an interview with Charlie McCarty, who is the biggest man in Ladder 31. And he is as tough a fireman as he is big. He is respected around the firehouse, not only because of his size and his ability as a fireman, but also because he is known to do the right thing. Always. Never pretentious, McCarty is willing to stand up for anything or anyone when he thinks the cause is right. Charlie applied the mechanical resuscitator to Mike Carr as the ambulance careened its way to the hospital. He stayed with Mike the whole time the doctors worked on him. He tried to make small talk with the members of Engine 85 at the hospital to take their minds off Mike. He tried to console Nick Risso, who was punishing himself because he was driving the apparatus from which Mike fell. He said, "God almighty, Nick, how many times did you turn that corner before when nothing ever happened? The big guy upstairs called the shots, that's all. You gotta look at it that way." But Nick just sobbed, with his face in his hands. It's 5:30 as I walk toward the firehouse on Intervale Avenue. In the summertime, Intervale Avenue is a concrete swamp. The constant running of open hydrants makes the street dank and muddy. But now it's just dirty. I can hear the choir practicing as I pass Mother Wall's Baptist Church, and the high, quick sounds of the gospel music remind me in a curious way of a siren. The firehouse is empty. As I walk up the stairs to the locker room, I hear the sirens and the air horns coming down 169th Street. They pass the firehouse, and the sounds fade. They are coming from one alarm and going to another. I change clothes. There's blood on the sweatshirt I wore last night, so I fumble through my laundry bag for a clean one. Even with 3 small boys to care for, my wife always makes certain to have a clean change of clothes in my laundry bag. On the left side of the sweatshirt, there is a 6-inch Maltese cross. And the circle of the cross, in bold letters, it reads, Engine 82, a mark of identification in one way, and a boast in another. It is 5:45 p.m. now, and Ladder 31 and Engine 82 are backing into quarters. Engine 85 is still out somewhere, along with Ladder 712 and the chief. I see Ed Kells and ask him how the day went. He says, "Same old crap. About 10 runs, most of them rubbish. Engine 85 caught a good all-hands this morning on Hoe Avenue." An all-hands is a serious fire, but not serious enough to call for a second alarm. "Don Butt's got a kid out," Ed continued, "and they're going to write him up." "Lot of fire?" I ask. "Yeah, a frame building fully involved. Don got the kid out a rear window with a portable ladder. It was a great job." "How's the kid?" "He's in the hospital with second-degree burns, but he's okay." The boy really isn't okay. What Ed means is that he will live. The fire department does not like to give medals for saving people who die. And since the boy is still living, Don Butts has a better chance of getting a medal. I go to the company journal to check that my name has been entered by the house watchman. It has, and I'm officially on duty. I go to the rack on the side of the apparatus floor and get my rubber coat, my boots, and my helmet. I make sure I have a pair of gloves and a flashlight in my coat pocket. I put my gear on the pumper and go to the kitchen for a cup of coffee. Jerry Herbert is sitting in the corner. I'm ready for one of his inevitable wisecracks. He spots me and says, "I see you finally took that sweatshirt home for an oil change." "No, Jerry," I return. "I took it out to your house, and your old lady did it for a dime. If you gave her some money once in a while, she wouldn't have to work on the side." "Ah, so that's what kind of night it's going to be," Jerry says to the 8 guys sitting around the kitchen. "Dennis must have ate a tough pill, and he thinks he can hit flies with the big guys. Well, let me tell you, pal," he says, directing the words to me now. "You better go upstairs and eat about 10 more of those pills, because I'm going to eat you up." He emphasizes the up, and everybody laughs. I know now that the joke is over, so I pinch him on the cheek and say, "What we need around here, Jerry, is more love." He makes a dirty gesture. Everybody laughs again, and he continues the conversation that was going on before I entered. Jerry is the oldest member of Ladder 31. He is 38, the chauffeur of the truck, and the senior man. He is called the first whip, a term that has survived from the days when horses pulled the fire engines. He is also the union delegate of Ladder 31, and he is talking now about a cousin of his who was a waiter in a fancy restaurant in Manhattan. He says, "I'm telling you, the guy makes at least $3,000 more than me each year. I know. My other cousin does our taxes. The people of New York are willing to pay a guy who does nothing but bring 'em food a damn good salary, 20% tips on everything. But do they support the firemen when we demand a living wage? Damn right they..." The bells start coming in. Everybody stops what they are doing. I stop putting sugar in my coffee. Jerry stops talking. 2 bells, 7, 4, then 3. We know that box well. 2743, Charlotte Street and 170th. We go to that intersection more often than any other. It is usually a false alarm, but there is no such thing as crying wolf in this business. As we hustle toward the kitchen door, the house watchman yells out, 82 and 31 goes. I kick my shoes off by the pumper and shove my feet into my rubber boots. Jim Stack slides the pole from the second floor. He is the senior man in Engine 82, the first whip, and I always feel good when I work with him. He's 39, and in great shape because he loads soda trucks on the side. Like most of us, he has a wife and a few kids and a house in the suburbs. If he didn't work that extra job, he would still be living in the Bronx. He is the most experienced engine man in the house, and when he is with me on the nozzle, I could fight my way into the core of the earth. As I put on my rubber coat, I see Vinnie Royce standing next to me on the back step of the pumper. He is a quiet, sincere guy, and the fire department is his whole life. He used to work in Harlem, but he transferred to Engine 82 when we became the busiest company in the city. There is enough action in Harlem to keep any fireman running, but Vinnie wanted that little extra that made him part of the busiest. The pumper starts to roll out, and I lean down to help Carmine Belly up to the back step. Carmine is an exercise buff. He runs 3 to 5 miles a day. He's also an excellent folk guitarist. Like Royce, he doesn't say much, but he is quick to laugh at the jokes that fly so often through the firehouse air. As we roll up Intervale Avenue, I see Benny Carroll riding on the side step of the pumper. Along with Carmine and me, this is his second night of duty. He looks a little tired, like he didn't get any rest today. He is studying hard for the coming lieutenant's test, maybe 4 or 5 hours a day. Hundreds of facts about building laws, chemical formulas, personnel management, fire intensity, and department regulations were floating through his head as I slept calmly on my mother's couch. He is a handsome guy with perfect white teeth, and when he smiles, I always think of a toothpaste commercial. We are now going up Wilkins Avenue. I remember going up this street one night recently. I was riding on the side step where Benny is now. A kid threw a rock and everything turned black. I was hit in the middle of the eye, and my knees buckled. My grip on the handrail tightened, as it tightens now. Some little kid who was never taught any better threw a rock, and I remember how lucky I was to have had a grip on the handrail. The pumper turns up 170th Street. Ladder 31 is right behind us, and the sirens and air horns are wailing. Few people even turn to watch us go by. Screaming fire engines and police cars are a part of life in the South Bronx, just sounds to which people have adjusted. There are 3 men sitting on milk boxes near the alarm box, drinking from cans of beer wrapped in small brown paper bags. Jim Stack and I walk up either side of Charlotte Street looking for smoke or waving people. We have done this 1,000 other times, and it seems now to be a dumb ritual. The 3 men are disinterested and talk among themselves. Captain Albert Gray looks around and goes to rewind the alarm box. I walk over and ask the men if they saw anyone pull the box. One man, without looking at me, said, "Yeah, a kid. He went up the street." I Guess you didn't think of grabbing him, I said. That's not my job, man, he said. I would like to tell this guy about my car and about the letter the president sent to his widow. But I know that he doesn't care. He doesn't want to hear it. Bill Valenzio yells from the driver's seat of the pumper, "Hey, we got another run." The siren and air horn begin to wail again as the pumper turns down 170th Street. I can see the radio at Captain Albagray's ear. We don't know where we are going, but we know that a box has been pulled somewhere. The pumper turns up Freeman Street, and we can see a lot of smoke on Stebbins Avenue. It is an abandoned Pontiac convertible, about a year old. The flames are shooting 10 feet above the car. We don't have to hook up to a water hydrant because the pumper has a 275-gallon water tank for small fires like this. I pull off the small 1-inch booster hose that is already connected to the tank. The water spurts, and I direct the stream behind the rear wheel. The gas tank must be cooled off to keep it from blowing. I've only seen one gas tank blow since I've been a fireman, and that one sent a guy to the hospital. As I extinguish the rest of the fire, the men of Ladder 31 open the doors, the hood, and the trunk. The trunk is empty. The block and the radiator are all that is left under the hood. The car is sitting on wooden crates. The tires and rims are gone. There are no license plates. The guy who owned it will never find out what happened to it. It must have given someone a few hours of joyriding, and whoever got the tires must be $20 richer. We extinguish 4 or 5 of these fires every day. It is 6:30 p.m. as the pumper backs into quarters. As I walk to the kitchen to attempt another cup of coffee, Bill Valenzio pulls a hose to refill the booster tank. It means a lot of extra work for us if that tank is empty. I remember the times we had to stretch 6 or more 50-foot lengths of hose to put out a simple car fire or a garbage fire. When the fire was extinguished, the hose had to be uncoupled, each length drained, and then reloaded onto the pumper. You can see why Bill makes sure the tank is full at all times. In the kitchen, Billy O and Jerry are making a shopping list for tonight's meal. One of the younger guys, or Johnnies, will go to the store. "What's on the menu, Billy O?" I ask. "Dennis, pal," he replies. "Everything will be just the way you like it." This is a phrase Billy O uses often. He continues, "To begin with, a little tomato juice for an appetizer, breaded pork chops topped with a baked peach for the entree, and Jerry is going to make his great potatoes with sour cream sauce. And for dessert," he adds with a twinkle in his eye, "the cabinet is filled with Alka-Seltzer." I laugh and ask, "What about the vegetable?" "Me and Jerry were just thinking about that. Any suggestions?" "Asparagus with wine vinegar." Billy O smiles his usual half-smile and says, "Dennis, pal, that's an excellent suggestion." He turns to Herbert and says, "Make it string beans, Jerry." "I knew I could help you, Billy O," I say. There are 18 firemen in the kitchen now. Engine 85 and ladder 712 have returned from the fire they were working. It was a small job, 2 rooms in a vacant building. A few men are playing gin at the corner table. 4 guys from Engine 85 have started a Scrabble game at the next one. Matt Tunney carefully makes the first word. Anus. The other players laugh. I look down at his rack and ask him why he didn't use the other A to pick up an extra point. He says, "You mean sauna?" I thought of that, but nobody would have laughed. The bells start sounding again. Box 2508, Howe Avenue and Aldous Street. Engine 85 and ladder 712 are assigned there. I sip my coffee easily as I watch the men hustle through the kitchen door. The room is quiet now, and I can understand what the news reporter is saying on the TV. The phone rings. It's an alarm for ladder 31. 3 more guys run to the kitchen door. Jim, Vinny, and I watch the news. 120 people have been arrested at an anti-war rally. Jim says, "You know the way I figure it? It's just that times have changed. I would have been madder than hell if they had protested the Korean War the way they do this one. And we were fighting for the same thing, right? Most of these protesters are in college just to keep out of the army anyway. And they talk about democracy and equality. If they took away the college deferment and made the draft equal, then they would have a reason to protest. But you never hear them yelling about that. The department telephone rings. 3 distinct rings in quick succession. We know from the signal that it won't be a false alarm. Someone has called the department, and they are relaying the information. Vinny chalks on the blackboard, 1284 Fox, apartment 30. The pumper is in the street in less than 30 seconds. It is only 2 blocks up Intervale Avenue to the address, and on the way I suddenly remember hearing that Jim has a bronze star and a purple heart, but I never heard him mention either of them. We can smell burning wood and plaster in the air. We all know that ladder 31 and ladder 712 are at other alarms, and it will take a few minutes for another ladder company to get here. As we turn the corner, we see smoke coming from 2 windows on the 3rd floor. Vinny says, "I'll take the axe and a claw tool." Then yells to Benny, "Take the hook and water can." Benny nods as he puts on his gloves. Luckily, the fire is only on the 3rd floor. Jim, Carmine, and I can handle the hose work while Benny and Vinny do what a ladder company is supposed to do. The pumper stops in front of the building. Captain Albert Gray yells out, 5 links, 1.5 inches, and then runs into the building. Benny and Vinny follow right behind. Jim takes the nozzle in his left hand and puts his right hand through 3 folds of 1.5 inch hose, one 50-foot length. I take a length as Jim steps down, and Carmine takes another length. Carmine lays his folds on the ground and pulls off 2 more lengths of hose. Jim yells to Bill, "Take off," and the pumper moves to the hydrant, the coupled hose dropping off behind it. The stairs are crowded with excited people. We tell them to watch the hose as they go down. We reach the 3rd floor with 2 lengths to spare. Carmine flakes it out down a long hall. We pull our boots up to our thighs. Captain Albert Gray comes out of the apartment and the smoke billows out with him. "We met the lady who lives here on the way up," he says. "She had 2 kids with her and said the place was empty. Benny and Vinny are in there searching anyhow." Vinny comes out with mucus running from his nose. He wipes it off with his glove and says, "Listen, Jim, the fire is at the end of a long hall. Make a left at the end, and it's the first 2 rooms." We're all bending low now because the smoke is starting to bank down. Benny comes out of the apartment on all 4s. He asks, "Did a truck company get here yet?" "No," Captain Albert Gray says. "You better go up and get the roof." As Benny leaves to ventilate the smoke and heat at the top of the building, we can hear the water running through the hose. The fire has already broken the glass in the front 2 rooms. The heat will be able to escape, but Captain Albert Gray tells Carmine to get a mask, just in case. We have to put the fire out fast before it extends to the floor above. We are on our hands and knees as we hump the hose forward. We keep our heads as close to the floor as possible. It is sooty as hell, and the smoke has filled the hall. It's tough pushing in, but we get to the end of the hall and see the vague red glow to the left. The heat hits us full for the first time. Captain Albert Gray's walkie-talkie is blaring. The chief has ordered Engine 94 to stretch a second line to the floor above, but they won't need it. We're in now. The smoke is lifting, and we are sitting on our heels. Jim keeps the nozzle moving in a circular motion. The water is bouncing off the ceilings and walls and hits us in the face as steam. Every 10 seconds, Jim yells, "Give me 3 feet more," and we hump the hose in. Ladder 31 is here now, and Alan Sybeck is in the room pulling at the ceiling with a 6-foot hook. "Where the hell you been, Alan?" I yell to him. "We stopped for dinner at Delmonico's, you dumbass. Where else would we go?" Alan would normally have a lot more to say, but it's his job to check for fire extension, and he ignores me. "Just a few more feet and we got it," Jim yells. "Beautiful, beautiful," Captain Albert Gray keeps saying. Benny is back now, and he helps me with the hose. Jim makes the far room. The fire is out now, and Chief Nybrock is checking for extension. But the fire never got beyond these 2 rooms. Jim and I go over to a window, The air tastes good. I look at Jim, and at the mucus running over his mouth. He takes his glove off and blows his nose into his hand. He coughs up a large glob of stuff from his diaphragm and spits it on the wall. It hits solidly, black with occasional veins of gray. Ladder 31 and ladder 19 start tearing the walls and ceilings down. Everything in both rooms is burnt. A bedroom set, a couch, a couple of stuffed chairs, a television console. A cop leads a woman into the room. She looks around and screams hysterically. She didn't have much, and now she has nothing. She collapses, and Benny helps the cop carry her into a neighbor's apartment. Before leaving, we give the rooms a heavy bath. Our underclothes are sticking to us, and the brisk breeze sweeping through the ventilated apartment chills us. I think of those men on Charlotte Street, and wonder how people can drink beer on street corners in weather like this. The kitchen clock reads 8 o'clock as I put 15 cents in the soda machine. Matt Tunney looks up and says, "They took Nick Rizzo to the hospital." "What happened?" Vinnie Royce asks. "We were coming back from Hohen Aldous and some guy threw a brick and hit Nick in the chest. Not a half brick, a full fucking brick. The pumper was going about 25 miles an hour. And if it would have hit him in the face, it would have killed him." "Is he hurt bad?" I ask. "Well, they're letting him out of the hospital, so it can't be too bad." Matt looks up, and a smile appears on his face. Rizzo is standing at the door. "How you feel?" ask Matt and Vinny at the same time. "A little weak," Nick answers. "A lot of blood vessels in my chest are broke." He opens his shirt and shows us the redness on his chest. "If I didn't have my rubber coat on, the impact would have knocked me right off the pumper. It absorbed the impact, you know? The doctor says I need a lot of rest." The bell starts sounding again, box 2402, and the guys of Engine 85 and Ladder 712 hustle out of the door. Nick goes upstairs to change clothes. He'll be on sick leave for a few weeks. We call it R&R, rest and recuperation. I follow Nick up the stairs. In my locker somewhere, there is an old battered book of Yeats poems. I search through the pile of dirty laundry, the paperback mysteries, the worn copies of Playboy and the Saturday Review. There it is. The red cover is coming apart, and some pages have loosened, but it's still complete. I remember reading a poem where Yeats talked about wise men becoming tense with a kind of violence before they can accomplish fate, and I finger the pages looking for it. It is this kind of violence I am feeling now, as Nick Rizzo slowly changes his clothes across from me. What can be done with people who throw bricks at the very men who are the most committed to protecting the lives of the brick throwers? I feel empty and helpless because I know that nothing can be done. And I feel violent because I know that this insanity will continue until the brick throwers are educated, until they find decent jobs, and until they have better places to live in. I come to Under Ben Bulbin and start to read, but 3 short rings of the telephone interrupt me. A voice from downstairs yells, 82 and 31, get out. Benny Carroll closes a fire protection manual and runs to the pole hole. Nick says, "So long, guys," as I wrap my arms and legs around the top of the long brass pole. As I slide the pole, the bells come in. Box 4746, Prospect Avenue and Crotona Park East. It's a job. The telephone alarm and the location give me a feeling that we'll have a worker. It's like a sixth sense. It is 8:20 p.m. As we turn up Prospect Avenue, we can smell the smoke. There's only one smell like this: burning paint, plaster, and wood. We can see the smoke banking down on the avenue before us, but we can't see the fire yet. Ladder 31 is right behind us, so we know we will get the ventilation we need. As we turn the corner at Crotona Park, we can see the fire. Flames are licking out of 8 windows on the 3rd and 4th floors of a 6-story tenement. There must have been a delayed alarm, and I imagine people alerting other people, alerting everyone but the fire department. There was a crowd of people on the sidewalk. Some are in night clothes, some are barefoot. Many are simply interested passers-by. People are still rushing out of the building, crying, sobbing, or just sullen. We have to take the heavy 2.5-inch hose for a body of fire like this. Jim Stack takes the nozzle again, and the first length, I take the second, and Carol the third. Vinny and Carmine head for the mask compartment. Take off! People are screaming that there are people trapped on the 5th floor. They are angry and confused because we are not paying any attention to them. They haven't seen Ladder 31 go into the building, but we know if there is a rescue to be made, Ladder 31 will make it. As we start to hump the hose into the building, I notice that Jerry Herbert has already raised the aerial ladder to the 5th floor window. Richie Rittman and Billy O are climbing up it. The lights in the building have blown, and Captain Albert Gray guides us up the stairs with his portable lamp. He tells us that Chief Nybrock has ordered a second alarm. We'll need the extra help. We reach the 2nd floor and flake out the hose. We go to the top of the stairs at the 3rd floor landing. The whole front half of the building is on fire. The flames are in the hallway and shooting up the stairs to the 4th floor. We have to wait now for the water to come through the hose. It's getting hotter, and Captain Albert Gray tells us to back halfway down the stairs. Jim turns to me and Benny and says, "When we get water, we'll hit the hallway, and then make a left into the 1st apartment. It's going to be a hard bend, so keep the hose low. I don't know how far we'll be able to go, but we'll try." Captain Albert Gray says, "All right, Jim, but don't push too fast. The goddamn fire must be through the roof by now, so we'll be here for hours anyway." We can hear the water gushing through the line. As it reaches the nozzle, Jim says, "Let's go." And he moves up the stairs with us, pumping the hose behind. I can see Engine 45 moving up the stairs below us with another line. I tell them to move in on the 2nd apartment as soon as they get water, but my words are unnecessary. They'll be there.
And that was Chapter 1 of Report from Engine Company 82 by Dennis Smith. Back in a minute. Thank you. The following is one of my voiceover demos. If you're a voiceover artist and you would like to advertise one of your demos on my podcast, please send an MP3 to thedrill12, all one word, at gmail.com. That's thedrill12 at gmail.com. Back in a minute.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Caesar's Palace for 12 rounds of boxing. In the red corner, from Los Angeles, California, wearing the red trunks with the gold trim, weighing in at 125 pounds, the lightweight champion of the world, Danny Little Red Lopez. Well, Bill, our winners get a home theater receiver. That's right. Experience the full potential of high-definition video with this 72-channel digital home theater receiver from Yamaha. But wait, that's not all. They also get a 5.1-channel surround sound system from Mirage. With 5 palm-sized speakers and a compact subwoofer cube, the MX 5.1 brings you huge immersive sound with Mirage's omnipolar technology. All from the Spiegel catalog, Chicago, Illinois, 60609. And they're taking closer order as down the stretch they come. Mr. Hot Stuff has 3 lengths to make up with chocolate candy last. On the rail, take the points behind that gallant son with chocolate candy gaining on the outside. In the lead is Pioneer of the Nile being tackled by chocolate candy. They're neck and neck as they come to the wire. And Pioneer of the Nile holds off chocolate candy and wins the Santa Anita Derby. And now, on your feet, time to greet holder of 14 NBA titles, your home team, your Los Angeles Lakers. Number 3 at 6'8", fifth year out of UCLA, playing forward, Trevor Ariza. Starting at center, number 17 at 7 feet, fourth year out of St. Andrews High School, Andrew Bynum. And at guard, number 24, 6'6", 13th season out of Loyal Marion High School, Kobe Bryant.
Thank you. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there and reminding you that you are not neutral and that the government has no rights.